Hey everyone, Seymour Balzac here. I want to bring you a little deck video now that we got the release of Silver Surfer. I had been theory crafting a Negative Wong deck for a couple weeks now. I didn't quite have the cards to fully, I think, kind of tie the whole list together, so I wasn't ready to release it to the public. However, I think Silver Surfer has put the Negative Wong list absolutely over the top. I think it's going to be a very good deck, and people are already starting to catch on, so I want to get this video out now, because hey, I've been working on this for a couple weeks before Silver Surfer came out. You know, I don't want to, once I get all the cards, release this in a couple weeks and people will be like, how, you just copied all those other YouTubers, right? No, I've been working on this list. I'm going to get this video out now, even though I don't have all the cards for it. And I think Silver Surfer is absolutely just puts this list over the tops, and let me explain. But first of all, just note there's two different deck lists. The one on the left is what I would consider the ideal deck. I'm missing Sarah, Mystique, and Brood from that list. So the deck list kind of up top in game there, that's kind of what I've been running, and it's still been working. Even I would consider Mystique and Sarah and Brood especially are just insane cards with Silver Surfer, and even without those, like, I've been having success with this deck. Like, I think that's how good Negative Wong is with Silver Surfer. So let's get into it a little bit. Let's touch on Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer costs 3 energy for 0 power, but on reveal, give your other 3 cost cards plus 3 power. So, like, just on its own, if you hit 2 3-drops with this, it's already a 3/6. Like, that's pretty good, right? If you hit 3 things, that's a 3/9. Or if you hit 2 things with, say, like a Wong, it's a 3/12, right? It gets up there like pretty quick. It doesn't really take a lot of 3-drops to make this card good, and it really doesn't take a lot of 3-drops plus Wong to make this card bonkers. And then on top of that, you throw on the negative. Mr. Negative turns this from a 3/0 to a 0/3. So now you can go 0/3 onto a Wong, and even if you only have like 2 other 3-drops out, you've played a 3 power card for 0 energy, and then you've buffed 2 other cards up by 6. Like, that's just insane value. And I think that's why Silver Surfer really brings the Negative Wong list over the top, is it combos so well with both those cards. And then once you really get into kind of the negative list and the Wong list, there's a lot of overlap in the 3-drop slot that combos well with both of them. You have Ironheart, right? On reveal, this on reveal double triggering you're giving with Wong, you're giving plus 12. Mr. Negative, it's now a 0/3. Like, again, that's really good. And it's kind of like these kind of synergies is what first caused me to start theory crafting this deck. But now on top of that, you've got the Silver Surfer that can also buff this thing on top of that. You've got Bishop. With negative, it's now a 1/3. It doesn't necessarily combo with Wong, but then with Surfer, you can also get it buffed. And then again, with negative, you're generally playing out a lot of small cards, so it's going to get buffed a lot from that. You've got Wolfsbane. Again, negative, it's now a 1/3. And then on Wong, you can get the double trigger on the reveal, and then with Surfer, you get the buff as well. Like, it's just insane. You've got Mystique, who I unfortunately can't pull up for you here, but Mystique is, it copies the ongoing ability of the last card you played. So you can, like, drop Mystique onto Wong, and you could drop, like, a Silver Surfer onto it, and then it's getting doubled. And even if you just had the Mystique out, like, Mystique is already, you've already buffed it up to 12. Like, you've already turned your Mystique into a Hulk with just those 3 cards, right? Like, and then on top of that, Mystique, if you have negative, it's again becomes a 0/3. It's like insanely, these combos are insanely powerful. The value is just like through the roof. And then on top of that, I think the best card to combo with negative is Brood, because Brood is a 3/2 and it makes 2 copies of it. So that's 3 energy cards from 1 card, right? Just Brood plus negative makes, Brood plus Silver Surfer makes your Silver Surfer basically like a 3/9, just those 2 cards combined. But then on top of that, if you negative the Brood, well, now it's a 2/3, so it only costs 2 energy to play. Those other Broods are also going to be 3 power, so that is really nice. And then Brood doesn't necessarily combo with Wong. but it does in the sense that Silver Surfer combos with Wong. So imagine like a Silver Surfer on a Wong that's hitting your 3 stack of the Broods. That's just, all 3 of those are getting +6. It's a lot of value. So they're just like, there are some really good 3-drops that really combo well with Negative and Wong, and now you add the Silver Surfer synergy on top of it. It is absolutely nuts. Now we'll get into kind of the rest of the deck. So you've got Psylocke. This is for ramping out your Wong or your Negative a turn early. It's huge either way, whichever one you get out. My preference is usually Negative. I feel like the deck is a little more, I think the deck is a little more negative, I find, with like a side of Wong. At least the version I've been playing. I haven't been able to playtest the ideal version. Maybe the ideal version's a bit different. But the version I've been playing, I find I like to, if I have the choice, I usually go for the Negative. But again, it's situational. Whatever works best with your hand. You can get either one out on 3. That's really good. You have your Angela, which getting reduced to a 0 from a 1 power is usually a nerf. But it's actually a buff for this deck, because now it's a 0-2 with Negative, which is pretty nuts, right? You can drop this, and then you can drop a bunch of like low 3s on it to buff it up a bunch, and then you drop your Surfer on your Wong, and then everything gets buffed up a bunch, and it's just, it's value. Again, this deck is just, you're taking the train to Value Town. That's what you're doing. And then we have Iron Man, which is just, it's just good in Negative lists, right? It's 0-5, so, but with its ability it's 0-10 with Negative, and then it doubles everything. And again, you're buffing stuff up. Iron Man's good with buffs and stuff like that, so it's just like a nice piece of synergy there. And then on the ideal list you have Sarah, and the reason why Sarah is good, like Sarah is good if you don't hit the Negative. It gives you kind of an additional way to get out some extra 3-drops. So Sarah reduces the cost of all of your cards in hand by 1. So that allows you to reduce your 3s to 2, which is a very significant breakpoint, because you go from dropping 2 3s to 3 3s on turn 6. So you could drop 2 3s and your Surfer on 6 instead of just 1 3 and a Surfer. So that's a lot of additional value right there. But then, if you get the Negative Dream, and then you get the Sarah, now you can just drop like so many. You basically drop your hand on 6. Like, it's just, it's so good. So that's kind of the dream for the ideal list. Now, what I've subbed in Jane Foster Thor. If you have this in your hand when you drop Negative, you can just drop it and pull all of your 0-cost cards out of your deck, and it just leads to just an insane turn 6. It is definitely more of like a high roll card. It's it's consistent than say like the Sarah version, because it requires you to hit the Negative for this card to be useful, and it requires it to be in your hand when you hit the Negative. If you draw this after you've played the Negative, it'll be an 8-5. You can't play it. So it gives this deck, since I'm lacking the cards for the consistency, it gives me that high roll power to make up for the lack of consistency. And then on top of that, I threw in the Panther Zola package, because that kind of, those do combo well with Negative, and they go very well with Wong. So Black Panther normally is a 5-4, on reveal double this card's power, and at times, at least in my list, since again I don't have the super consistent list, at times it gets a little bit bricked, and there's times where literally just dropping Panther and then Zola and just getting that 16 power into the 2 other lanes like just wins the game. It's a very strong combo, and it's just it's kind of, since my list is more of a little bit more of a high roll list, it adds a little bit of consistency toward the end of the game in case I need that. So basically Panther 5-4, you drop it, it becomes a 5-8, it doubles its power. If you drop it on an empty lane, you can Artem Zola it, which Zola on reveal destroy a random friendly card here, add copies to the other locations. The important thing with Zola is it re-triggers on reveal abilities. So the Panther that you're destroying goes into the other, you get a copy into each of the other lanes, and that 5-8 then doubles because it's on reveal ability and becomes a 5-16. So you've turned your 1-5-8 into 2 5-16s with Panthers, and then on top of that, Zola goes very well with Negative, because if you hit Negative, well, now instead of a 6-0, it's a 0-6. Part of the problem with Zola is it's like, Sometimes it's incredibly obvious what you're setting up if you've dropped a Panther into an open lane. So people think, okay, I just need to drop like a 1-drop here and, you know, I'll win this lane, right? Well, now if it's a 0-6, they have to commit a bit more to that to win that lane. And on top of that, too, you can now save your Panther to turn 6, so you don't telegraph your play as much, right? If you drop your Panther in an empty lane of 5, it's like, okay, well, he's probably going to Zola it, right? Well, now you can save your Panther to 6, drop that with the Zola in combination, so it adds a little bit more, I guess, like a surprise factor if you hit that negative. It gets pulled by the Jane Foster Thor, which is another reason why it's in this deck. It combos very well. And then to go back to the Black Panther, same thing. If you hit it on the negative, it becomes a 4-5, so then it doubles up to a 5-10, and then if you Zola, it becomes 20 power in the other 2 lanes, and that can often make the difference. 16 versus 20 can quite often make the difference. I've had times where the 16 hasn't quite been enough, where 20 would have been enough. And then on top of that too, they combo very well with Wong. So Wong, you get an additional trigger. So if you have Wong in an open lane, you drop Panther on it, that Panther is going to automatically go up to a 16. It doubles twice, right? It goes up to 16. You then drop a Zola on that lane. Zola will trigger twice now, so it's still guaranteed to hit your Panther. So at worst, your Panthers in the other 2 lanes are going to be 32s. And at best, if it hits the Wong first, then that will go in the other lanes, then your Panthers will go on top of the Wongs, and they'll double again, and those will go up to 64 Panthers. So it provides, in a way, the Zola Panther combo provides a bit of consistency, but it also does provide some high roll power too. So those are kind of the substitutions I've made. I really do think that Silver Surfer has put Negative Wong over the top. I think this is a very good list. I cannot wait until I get like Sarah, Brood, and Mystique so I can play the ideal list. But in the meantime, I'm having a ton of fun with this list I currently have. So even if you don't have quite all the cards, like if you've got Negative, you got Wong, and you've got Surfer, like you could probably throw together something that will work, right? Like there's just so much synergy there with 3 drops that you already have, as I mentioned before. So definitely give this deck a try. It's a ton of fun. Some of the plays you can pull off they're just so much fun to pull off, and I would definitely highly recommend this deck.